Okay, call this meeting to order. We're going to begin with public hearings. We have 4 of them tonight. If anybody would like to speak on the first one, is ordinance number 1, 2019, providing for an amendment to Chapter 14, Article 4 of the Winslow Town Code, titled Zoning Districts. Would anybody like to speak up and talk about ordinance 1?
I would.
Okay.
Podium?
Yes, please. And say your name and your address, please.
My name is Scott Bond. I'm married to Kathy Bond, and we live at 631 Augusta Road. And we're here to voice some objections to the proposed change to a mixed-use situation. And I'll keep this very brief, but I've got four or five major points I want to make. I'll start with the selfish one. We live in a home that under no conditions will ever be of any value as a commercial property. We are situated on the bend near the dip, as it's known locally, and it will never meet line of sight entrance or exit requirements. And on a state-funded road, the minute that property changes use, that will be a requirement and it will fail miserably. So that being said, the majority of the value or the equity in our home is as a well-kept residential property, which we've attempted to do for at least 20 years. We've lived there for 20 years. In the event that the proposed zoning goes through, among the things that we're subject to suddenly having as a neighbor would be a filling station, a nightclub, multifamily dwellings. I mean, there's significant possibility that the overall type of the character of the neighborhood would be changed inalterably. Unfortunately, we will always remain a house, perhaps next to the latest Irving station. And the 20 years we spent paying this down is now money out the window because nobody wants to live next to the nightclub or the new gas station. Now I realize that some of that may be a little unlikely, but I think we're all old enough to have seen many unlikely things happen that we never really planned for. In essence, if this happens, this is actually an erosion. It's in a sense a taking, which we would never be compensated for. The actual loss to my wife and I wouldn't occur immediately, but 10 or 20 years from now, when we're both of nursing home age or retirement age, we would suffer the financial loss years after this decision is made. And so it doesn't seem fair from our very personal perspective for that to happen. A second point on this particular issue is that in the 20 years we've lived there have been 6 major accidents within 100 yards of my front door. The last one being a fatality, literally in our front yard. But interestingly, we've had other cars totaled on the trees in our front yard. We've had people drive into the embankment. We've had people lose control and almost kill my wife, who was out shoveling snow near the mailbox. And this is without the added pressure of commercial entry and exit traffic that would become a part of a mixed-use situation should any of our abutters decide to develop their property commercially. Right now it's pretty peaceful. I contend that there is probably more accidents within a quarter-mile stretch of our particular house than there are at the end of the bridge up there by Fortin's Furniture. That's an opinion. I can't back that with fact right now, but easily researched. So there is some major line of sight issues there. There's some major winter time traffic flow issues due to the icing in the corner. It's a bad situation for anything that involves people coming and going into any future business. Another thing you may not be aware of is that Chaffee Brook, the culvert which was rebuilt immediately, our property literally crosses the brook. as does Irene's property. It's an absolute, environmental gem. That stream flows year-round. It's I'm surely not, it's not drinkable water, but it's a year-round stream, and the water quality is excellent. And anytime we have a mixed-use scenario, we're going to have many small businesses. The first thing of which they will do is create a parking area for their business. Most of these smaller lots are our home, but again, ours will always be a home. But those in either direction from us will have created additional impermeable surfaces that will never be subject to DEP requirements, because they're all going to be under the square footage required for a DEP study or retention pond or anything like that. So the Chaffee Brook, which is a wonderful little stream, can only suffer with additional routine runoff in addition to stormwater runoff. And it all flows in that direction. From a particular, just a lifestyle comment, I enjoy the occasional cup of Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and yet every day I pick other people's Dunkin' Donuts coffee cups off of my front lawn. So already a business that's located literally 1.5 miles from my house has had a negative impact where we live, because every day I'm out there picking up some iced coffee container that somebody has tossed out the window, every single day. Now, in the event that such a similar business, which would be entirely within the scope of use in a mixed-use scenario, were to locate next door, I would be a professional janitor on my own property, and so the quality of life diminishes even if we just choose to stay there and enjoy it. The other thing I wanted to say is that in a small town, many people know each other. For the most part, everybody gets along and as friends. And there's certain unlikely things that may or may not happen, but my wife and I are not always going to be the people who live in that home. Those of you on the planning board are not always going to be sitting where you are. And so 10 years from now, decisions made tonight are going to have consequences that can't be controlled by friendly people just short of shaking hands and saying, no, that's not going to happen, we'll make sure. Once this has been zoned mixed use, any business that meets the requirements that are stated in the mixed use ordinance, you could not be denied. It's not a matter of personal taste at that point. Among the things that just within our immediate neighborhood, I'm surprised have not been caught, is I was shocked to realize that within 200 yards of my driveway that Augusta Fuel was allowed to locate 2 of the biggest propane tanks I've ever seen next to a nursing home, and literally uphill from a trailer park, and propane is heavier than air. I don't know how that ever happened, but it did. And now when you drive by there at night, they've got lights that you could probably see from the moon. So there's been no attempt by a business immediately adjacent to this proposed area to be a good neighbor. They may have met the requirements of their particular zone, but the lights are hideous. There's no attempt to preserve the night sky whatsoever. No, I don't believe Winslow has a night sky, dark sky ordinance. But there is another example. Our property is very long and skinny. It actually crosses this brook, and our neighbor has, and they're a great family. Hear me out here for a second. But there's an unapproved driveway that suddenly appeared on our property into my neighbor's house. It's under the power line. Well, we happen to own that property. He probably doesn't know it, but where was Winslow with regards to a sudden new driveway? It shouldn't be there under any conditions. He can leave it there as far as I'm concerned, but I'm concerned about the follow-through. In the event that there are some sort of assurances or conditions, I'm a little concerned about the follow-through by the town of Winslow and those who are charged with enforcing things to make sure it's done pretty much as we think it should be. So that's all I have to say. Obviously, my wife and I stand opposed to this change. We, in good faith, spent a lot of money and have invested a lot of money over the years. We love the town of Winslow. We love our location. We don't see how the town will in any way benefit. We certainly won't benefit, but we don't see how the town will benefit from this change either. Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Steve, can I, now, what he was talking about was 52019, because we were talking about.
Talking about one.
That's fine.
I'm okay.
No, I just
No,
want to explain something.
Confused me.
We have 4 public hearings on 4 different zoning ordinances.
Okay.
And I'm going to switch it to this one since you spoke.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
my
We're gonna have a
apologies.
public hearing on all of
I'm
them.
confused.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to have a public hearing on all of them, so I'm going to continue with the public hearing on this one,
Gotcha.
ordinance 5, 2019, since we've started it. And I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak on any of the ordinances, particularly ordinance number 5, 2019?
Can we have clarification on what the ordinances are and what numbers? I'm kind of a little confused at what ordinances we're listening to in general, all of them.
Well, basically, we're going to do all of them before the evening's
There's
full.
no what they are, I guess.
Right. The gentleman just spoke on was ordinance number 5, an amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone the following lots on tax map 4, lots 25 to 25F, and then there's a whole list of them. It's basically the whole Augusta Road, right? Am I saying that right? This is already mixed use, right?
No, that's mixed use.
This is mixed use. And we're gonna change it to this?
The one in green would be the one changed.
Right. That'll be changed to mixed use.
Oh, so he's on this side of the road. I was thinking he was this one.
Can I ask him a question?
Are you the lot right after the Howard Cemetery?
No, we're a little
Okay.
closer to town. There's a cemetery immediately behind us, the Drummond
The
Cemetery.
Drummond Cemetery, that's what I meant to say.
Yes.
You're the Drummond,
House on the hill with a funny looking.
you have a little
terrace.
driveway going down to the Drummond
That's it.
Cemetery.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I knew where I was.
So is he in the orange,
He's in the orange right now.
not in the green, which you're changing?
Right.
The proposal is, if anybody can see this map, from there, this is the Augusta Road, and on one side of the road it's green, and the other side is where this gentleman lives, and we're proposing to change that to the same, green on both sides.
No.
No, just change the green.
Right.
Oh, we're changing the
The
green.
orange is staying the same.
Orange is staying the same, so your lot won't change.
It's the lots around.
I'm very concerned about the lots around, and 2 of the
Right.
abutting lots are over 25 acres. That opens the possibility for retail development over 20,000 square feet.
Okay. Okay,
Big problem for me.
okay. I was even more confused now.
Yeah, I know.
Which
So-
side of,
Go ahead, Ken.
which side of the Augusta Road are we, is gentleman's property? Is
We
it
live on the
east,
riverside.
He's on the
closer to
Kennebec
river.
side, Kennebec River side.
The west.
Which is already mixed use.
Correct.
You already live in a mixed-use district.
It's the abutting property that concerns me.
Okay.
Across the
okay,
street.
Our house is always going to be what it is.
Okay.
Okay.
So across the
Right.
street from your house, we're proposing to change that
Yes.
to mixed use.
I would also like
Okay.
to suggest that there was a massive illegal dumping of brush and stumps to create line of sight access to the road. Minimum 50 truckloads were buried adjacent to the road, and where was Winslow to say, what is this? It was literally a dumping site for weeks on end.
How long ago was that?
About 3-4 years ago.
Are you bringing these concerns to anybody?
I brought them here to you tonight.
Oh, okay, but before that, you haven't been telling anybody?
The driveway or the
The
dumping?
driveway.
Been a quiet, good neighbor.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
Yep.
And then tonight, it seemed appropriate to sort of bring a few things up.
I agree with you, and I appreciate
Sounds
that.
good. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
There is a copy in that first chair of the map we're looking at, I believe. Is that
Not
right?
the map, just
Not the
the
map.
agenda.
Okay, just the agenda. Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any more copies of the
no,
map?
but I can give him the one.
Does anybody want to see a copy of the map?
I'll give him a copy of mine.
Anybody else want one?
Was it online?
I just wanted to make sure I was here too. So you live in this lot right here.
It's a funny triangle, right, and our concern is, yes, it's this large tract immediately across, and he's a great guy, I don't have anything personal with him.
Well, that's why we have a public hearing, because we want to hear these things too. So.
Steve, where's his property?
I think it's 18 years. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So we're changing this green.
Yeah, I know that.
Is any member of the planning board here?
We had a couple here.
Very.
Would anybody like to speak to the proposed changes so we can answer some of the gentleman's questions, either the code enforcement officer or a member of the planning board?
Somebody want to have a question? Sure.
Do you have questions?
Well, I was just curious as to what precipitated the change? Why were we considering this change?
It was actually,
A request from the other property owners that want it changed?
yeah, Mr. Cloutier is here, and he'd like to put a used auto place next to the one that's already there. And in order to do that, he'd need a zoning change. So looking at the map, looking at recent development, the planning board decided to include those other lots.
Which lot is Mr. Cludier's lot? Good. Help me clear it up a little bit.
129.
So he has a small lot.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah. And all this green would change to yellow, right?
No, well, not this
And the lights
Have any of the other landowners asked you to change?
No.
There's been no other requests?
This one,
This is his lot, gentlemen.
this is the one that initiated. And next to him is Bernie from the Trailside.
Okay.
In order to keep doing what he
These two lots, he compatible with what's already going on, right? What is this zone?
This is
That's industrial. This is mixed use, and this is low density.
What lot number is Cloutier?
He's 129,
Which one is Bernie?
right beside it.
124? I mean, we could expand it this way, right? And not all of this. And that one.
Was low risk,
I mean, he's already this close to all this out, right? So you mean, you guys are on Bernie Drive, everything, so I went a little bit that way.
Bernie did. And the other guy came in to ask for this change, and I said, well, Bernie's gonna keep this change too if he wants to keep doing what he's doing. He just started doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that, I just asked
Do we
him.
wanna ask?
But he would benefit from the change
Sorry.
as
Yeah.
well.
Does anybody else have any questions about this proposed zoning change?
Well, I'd like to know more about from the code enforcement officer. I see he's out there having discussion, asking questions. This is a public hearing. I'd like to have it be public.
Sure.
The questions you guys are asking him, I'd also like to ask him and have the same answers.
Yeah, I can, what I asked them is, what's in that area already? And when I was listening to him, he said, well, there's Bernie Trailsides in that district right now as a residential. How did they ever get permitted, for a mixed-use type of thing?
Right.
They should have never had that permit, and that's what I was asking and what he said to me was, to continue the businesses in that area, we would have to, we're almost, not forced, but we would have to change that to mixed use, so the businesses that are existing there, or they're grandfathered there, or can they expand there? So, there's a whole bunch of issues, as what we're being discussed here right now, that have popped into at least my mind right now, saying that, and that's what I was asking, and that,
Right.
I apologize, it wasn't a private conversation, it was just, I should have done it through the chair, to the thing, so that
No, that's fine. I
everybody
just
could have
wanted to bring
heard
your
those
attention.
questions.
Inquiring minds like to know these
Yeah.
things.
And I apologize, that wasn't to try to hide something, it was just to, you know what I mean, just to.
I understand. Thank you.
I apologize for that.
There are several businesses through there, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
Tish's business and Trailside and all of them,
yeah. A lot of businesses.
auto glass.
It's my understanding that one side is residential and the office side, the riverside, is more multi-use already.
That's my
Part of
understanding.
it, yeah. That's
Bernie's
good.
residence is multi-use, even though he shares both sides.
Well, the other side of the road is low density,
Right.
not where his
That's the
main
green, that's what
business
we're
is.
trying to change.
Right.
The
I
green
own a-
is a
I own a-
low-density residential, right?
Yeah, I own a business on both sides, just like Bernie Doble does. That's why I attended the planning board meeting along with Bernie Doble, and Mike was there as well. So,
Yeah. Any other questions?
Does anybody have any questions they want to ask? Any planning board member or the code?
We have a planning board member here, code officer.
Basically, what Adam has said is correct.
and it was 5-0, correct? The
That
vote?
is correct.
Thank you, Adam.
I'm just gonna go back to, I guess, the first reason. First of all, I'm a little disappointed I got this letter of being a homeowner. It doesn't describe either use, residential or multi-use. So I had to do my own research to that. And wasn't aware there was more than one ordinance going on tonight. So, no, not having an agenda or probably go in with a letter. Just wanna, maybe in future use, that might be better to have.
More information to the butters.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Everyone that's affected that, so we don't have to all go on our own. I had to bother Adam directly through email to find out more information. So this just would save a lot of upfront stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
And then secondly, in the letter, and what we're getting to now, I guess, is why this request became. I'm not opposed or against it, or for it. I just, without knowing the details, as you all would like to know the answers, why is this being requested, and what use is it gonna be used
Sure.
for
Right.
going forward?
In general, a change of use comes from a request from a landowner that wants it changed.
I understand that, but
And-
what's the reasoning behind the request for that land use change? Obviously, we're going from some ordinance that says you can do this, X, Y, and Z, to something you can't do, that you need to have this use changed. So I think that's important to have in the request. Why is the town of Winslow seeking this request? There's a landowner within one of these zones that wants this request.
Right.
And no information is being provided, so the neighbors to that property can't make a sound decision based on, well, do I want this sitting next to me, as the gentleman spoke?
Yeah.
We don't know what's gonna pop up and what requirements, if that permitting process goes through, how does that business get that, say with the propane tanks? I'm fairly new to this, so I'm not sure all the ins and outs, but before I can make a decision if I'm against it or for it, I need to know these things, as you would.
Yep.
And I think that would be important, to have some of that, or as much of that included in the letter before we got here to make a hearing, I can't honestly say, for me, I'm actually for it because someday I might wanna run a business, not a gas station or a propane filling station, but something similar, or maybe that would fit in more to the community. So in that aspect, it's not a bad thing for me. When I bought my residence, I actually thought it was already in commercial zoning, because that's how the realtor advertised it as.
Right.
So my email with Adam, I found out that was not right. So
Right.
I would probably have to go through the same hoops to get this changed for me.
Yeah.
But being forthcoming, as a good neighbor, I would probably talk to my neighbors and join landowners to see how they thought about that.
I think it's a very good point, that we certainly can do a better job of giving you guys the information that's necessary to help. And I don't think there's any question that.
So I just, on that note, I guess it would be, I can't really make a decision until I know
Sure.
what's gonna happen, to hear what that reason is.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can we get his name and address? He did go to the podium.
Yeah, I'm sorry. One of the requirements to speak at a public hearing is to state your name and your address, so.
Frederick McCullough, 706 Augusta Road.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Is there any more discussion on the public hearing part of ordinance number 5, 2019? If not, we'll close that portion of the public hearing and open up to the next one.
We started with 1, 2.
Yeah, we can either go to 1, which is another amendment to the zoning ordinance,
Let's go to 1.
which is titled zoning districts. Is anybody would like to speak on that one? And that involves, if I can bring it up, that's a contract zoning. If there's no one wishing to speak on that ordinance, we'll close that portion and move to the next one, which is ordinance number 2. Amendment to chapter 14, article 4, zoning districts by adding temporary itinerant vendor and seasonal itinerant vendor as allowable use in the mixed use zoning districts. Is there anybody who would like to speak to that issue?
What was the reason this came up, Steve?
I believe it's a
That's a fish
seafood
guy?
truck.
Yeah.
He didn't fit into the category because he was there more than 60 days, I think. And so by being there only on the weekends, is that how it is? I'm sorry.
There are the two issues there, Steve.
Yeah.
Which are related, but my understanding was we discovered
Right.
that we did not include temporary itinerant vendor and seasonal itinerant vendor when we established the mixed use.
Mixed use, yeah.
So it was more of an oversight that we didn't include those as allowable uses.
Right. Yeah, okay.
I think that's right.
Did we say that right, Adam? Okay.
So we're just doing this to bring things up to date?
Right.
We're not messing with what he's already been doing?
Well, anybody would be doing
Yeah.
in these categories, because they wouldn't be allowed, as it stands, without this change, in the mixed use.
You wouldn't be allowed there, right? Is there any more discussion on ordinance number 4? If not, we'll close that portion of the hearing, and then that would conclude our public hearings.
Nope.
No, number 2. 42019, we haven't done.
We got two.
Oh,
We just did 2.
Just did 2. Moving on to ordinance 4, which is an amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone the entire lot owned by the town of Winslow on tax map 10, lot 18A, which is Benton Avenue, from the mixed use to the contract zone. Is there anybody who would like to speak to that? Anybody doesn't know that area? That's our industrial building out on Benton Avenue, behind Johnny's Selected Seeds and Johnny's. Anybody wishing to speak to that issue? If not, we'll close the public hearing and begin the regular council meeting. We'll begin with the roll call.
Alrighty. Jeff West?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Here.
Ken Fletcher?
Here.
Jerry Querian? Patricia West? Here. Ben Twitchell?
Here.
Steve
Yes.
Russell?
And then we'll have the president.
Allegiance to the flag.
Okay, approval, I entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion, corrections, additions? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Communications, we'll open it up to public comment on any subject matter that anyone from the town of Winslow would like to speak to. State your name, please.
We don't know you.
Kyle Price, 147 Clinton Avenue. Just a clarification question from some earlier action you took at previous council. Can you clarify what the paving project is going to be on Benton Avenue? Is that just from the Roderick Road to the Benton Town line? Correct. Is there a plan to do something between Bay Street, where it ends, to Roderick Road? That looks really deteriorated. I drive over that every day on the way to school, and that's rough.
You know, good, Mr. Chairman, the issue is available funds.
I
You know,
get
that, and we just had a workshop last week, and the issue is available funds in 2020, what we've got coming in, and the projects that we've already done.
I was under the impression when I heard Benton Avenue to the Benton Town line that it was including
Not the whole thing?
the whole thing.
Well-
So then I see where the work is now being done, and it kind of, you just verified what it is that was publicly pretty obvious, so, thank you.
If I,
I'm not complaining, I'm just clarifying.
Yeah,
it's kind of a,
Raymond.
you know, when you come down to it, not that many years ago, we wouldn't have paid for any of the Benton Avenue project that's going from Roderick Road to the town line because that's a state road. In order to get it done early, the state said, you either pay this amount and we'll get it early. So I think in the tune of $500,000, that we're paying $500,000 to get that done early. That $500,000 could have done from the Bay Street to the Roderick Road. And now, but because the deterioration of that road and the state saying that they're not gonna fund 100%, or they're just not gonna do it for an extended period of time, we're forced at that point in time to make a decision on what the road, and maybe Paul can comment on that, but that's pretty much the case, right?
Well, the thing is, if we did let the state do it, they would do what they did in Benton. They paint it black and come back before they do the road. What we're doing is gonna last a lot longer. It's more expensive. People live off their farm. But it is a state aid road, or like the rest of us do.
So do we get money from the state to do that section?
$500,000.
$500,000 they give us.
Yes.
Let everybody know, it's known as an MPI. And basically, it's, you put in an estimate up to $500,000. State will put that amount of money in. If it's lower, that's what they'll put in. The other one, we don't have state money yet. I believe that Paul, I don't know if you sent out the request.
Yeah, we have a request for an MPI for this part of Benton Avenue, hopefully for next year. We haven't heard otherwise. I haven't heard. It's thought they had money left over for next year. We're not
always put in for more than what you need.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments? At this time is the time for a member of the public to come up and speak on any subject they would like.
Good evening. My name is Mike Borden. I am in a new residence at 279 Clinton Avenue. Just built a new home, and I put a swimming pool in, and the state ordinance is 4 feet on swimming pool fences. For some reason, Winslow is 6 feet, and I'd like to know if I get that changed to 4 feet to have a low profile look behind my home. State.
I think that's on the agenda.
That's on the agenda.
For discussion at the end of the meeting to see if we can change that.
Gotcha.
Thank you, appreciate your input.
I thought I saw that.
Any further comments, public comments on any subject? If not, we'll close that portion of the meeting, and we have a request from Tim Lavasser to reappoint Peter Dean as trustee of the board for a 3-year term. Is there any discussion on that item?
Second.
And seconded, any discussions? You all set? All in favor, please raise your right hand. That's unanimous. Moving on to reports of committees and commissions. We'll begin with the town manager's report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have 2 items I'll talk about in the report. The first item being LED streetlights, and I was finally able to complete the assessment of our options. And as you can see on a document that hopefully you have, we ended up with 4 options. First one being CMP. And so if we decided to stay with CMP, they would own the lights, we would lease them. We wouldn't be responsible for any annual maintenance, nor would we have any lease payments. However, the savings on that particular option is only $20,000. The next option is real-term energy. And with real-term energy, we would actually own the lights, which also means we'd be responsible for maintenance. And so I've done a side-by-side comparison there, and as you can see, the savings with that option would be $33,000. The next option is Tenco Lighting. We would own the lights, we would be responsible for the maintenance, and the savings with that option is $30,000. The best option appears to be Affinity. Again, we would own the lights, we would be responsible for the maintenance, and the savings in that option would be $37,000. And so below each one of those options, except for CMP, you can see what the cost of the project would be. So for real term, total cost would be $189,456, and $32,142 of that in each one of the proposals is what's referred to as net book value, and that's the cost for us to buy our lights from CMP. So that net book is $32,142. Eco lighting, total cost for that project would be $222,781. And for Affinity, it's $174,628. Affinity currently has approximately 43 to 44 municipalities in Maine that they are doing streetlight projects for. Most recently is Waterville, Augusta, they're in in the process of doing Augusta's now, and they will also be doing Fairfield. They're out of New Hampshire, Concord, New Hampshire. They build the lights there, and they hire vets. Any vet that's unemployed, they will hire and put them to work there in their factory. So any questions?
Yes, good, Mr. Chairman. When we say we own the lights and annual maintenance, is that something we're going to contract out to maintenance?
Yeah, so ideally, we would budget for the maintenance and we would contract out with an electrician who would do any work that would need to be done.
Okay.
The warranty on the lights, actually for all the companies, except for C&P, it's a 10-year warranty. And although I put in a number of around $8,000 a year for annual maintenance, the reality is that it's a 10-year warranty. It's likely the only maintenance would be as if a vehicle struck a pole, lightning strike, or something like that. If it's a failure of the fixture itself because of manufacturing, then they would come and replace the lighting. We would just have, after the first year, we would just have any labor costs associated with it.
So is the thought that we would actually have a maintenance contract?
What I would envision, at least at this point, knowing that surrounding communities are going to LED lighting, is that perhaps we would get together with our neighbors and try to do a bulk arrangement with an electrician, and maybe by volume, we could get a better price.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Rick.
Good, I think Jerry had his hand up. Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, one of the things is, if we put LED lights, we're gonna own them, we're gonna maintain them. I know that CMP will require whoever the electrician is, has to be licensed on working on the poles. About Fairpoint, are we gonna need some paperwork?
Not from Fairpoint. So CMP, in light of what's happening across the state of Maine, CMP requires that the electrician be certified through them. And one of the other things they're requiring is a fuse between the light and the power, so that an electrician can go up there, disconnect the light without interfering with CMP's electrical grid, and do the work on the light that needs to be done.
Because I know that Spectrum has an arrangement with CMP not Fairpoint's now consolidated, that they're a renter on the poles. And I wonder if the same thing's gonna happen.
Yep. We're gonna take a 2-minute break.
All set?
Yep.
So, I assume we would have we'll have an issue before us when he'll present one of these options, right?
You know, I think what Mike wants is just a general direction from us to pursue whichever one, and then we would come back with an order.
I guess my question would be, this is a one-time savings, the installation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
One-time cost.
One-time cost, yes.
Right.
Well, 37,000, you mean?
37,000 less to do that one. Yeah.
Yes. Well, the savings are coming from the reduced electricity usage.
Right. But I'm just wondering if eventually the maintenance contract, if you would lose that $30,000.
No. You know, this is relatively new.
Because if we go with CMP, which costs the most, we'll never have to touch them again, right?
Right.
We wouldn't have to worry about maintenance. Yeah.
Yeah, when I looked at, there's a lot of questions that I have just seen for really the annual kilowatts savings. If you look at some of them, and I have to say up front that my son-in-law works for Graybar, and Graybar actually, Tanco is a subsidy, is doing the contract for Graybar. So I just want to say that up front. But the annual kilowatt saving, that's quite a bit of difference. That even though it's like per year, that's still significant savings on a yearly basis for the kilowatt hours. So if you look at it over the time of 10 years, you know, you're probably for kilowatt hours. Now, I don't know whether that's due to the actual bulbs, or whether they're more efficient, or whether they're less lighting, or what the luminance is on them.
They're
I guess
brighter
that's
than the
one
regular
question.
bulbs.
Huh?
They're brighter than the regular bulbs.
Yeah, I know that, but I'm just saying between, they're all LED, between C&B, Real Term, Tanco, and Affinity, there's quite a bit of difference there in the actual cost per year of the kilowatt hours. So I just wondered if that was due to luminance, and that's one of the questions I have. Also, the annual lease payment. What are we leasing there? Are we leasing space on the pole, or are we leasing because the equipment's ours, right? We're saying if we buy the equipment, $190, what is actually the annual lease payment? What's that?
That's, well, you know, Mr. Chairman, looking at the spreadsheet, what it looks like is the 10-year amortization of the equipment and installation and the book value at 4% interest. See, they, you know, they, whoever they is, will invest in, we'll just use the Infinity one, $174,628 total equipment and installation and net book value, total project. So if you amortize that over 10 years at 4%, I think that's what that 21,000.
21, that's what that is.
Okay. So we're buying it
Over a 10-year period.
But it's not gonna cost us any money up front, but
No,
yearly,
that's
but
right.
a yearly payment that.
No,
okay,
not
thank
the
you.
bucket truck.
That's the other thing, Ray, again, the baseline annual kilowatt hour is 205,000. I think that's what it is now.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yep, yeah, I get that.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's what we're using now?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
baseline.
That's the baseline.
Yeah. But I wonder why Tanco is Affinity is 64 and Tanco's 54.
Probably, taking a guess, don't know, but maybe the difference in the LED light or something.
Yeah.
Oh, so if the baseline is 205, this is saying 59 under real term, for instance. That's what our usage will be.
Yes, maybe LEDs.
We're going to use 1/4, basically 1/4 the
Yes.
electricity, round figure.
Yeah.
See, the other thing is that Affinity manufactures them themselves. The other people have to buy them.
I guess before I made a decision that I would want to know what the quality and what we're getting and the differences, like what's the light look like, what's the light bulb look like, what's the total cost, what's the quality of the project before we go into, I don't know if somebody could.
Well, the other thing is, he said Affinity has done a lot in the area. Maybe we should have him contact and see how happy they are with Affinity's work and see what the lights look like and things like that. I mean, it's not like we're reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, I think from what Mike said, and because I think the towns around, I think Hasselborough is going, Waterville's going. So, and I think he said they're going with Affinity.
Yeah.
But one of the things we could do is, we're not that we have to make an absolute decision tonight,
Right.
but we could pick a general direction. Say we really want to look at whichever one and get a greater level of detail.
Right.
And then we could work with Mike and the company to put the details in and answer some of those questions.
Right.
And these other communities apparently have already gone with Affinity that you spoke about. Waterville and Fairfield and Augusta. So apparently they've done some research we haven't even done yet.
Well, I'm not satisfied, right, with what I know of
That's right,
lighting
exactly.
and lights. I guess I need to be educated before we make a decision on the three. I'm not gonna take Vassalboro's word or Waterville's word. They must have a reason why they did it. I just need to know
And we
the
should need to
quality
find out why.
of what we're doing, because if you look at, that's something we're gonna live with for a very long period of time. The quality of the lighting, whether it's the safety features that street lights really entail, and so, I just need to, and that's what we're doing here, is basically.
I don't think there's
I
any-
want to feel comfortable doing what I have to do.
I think you're right. I don't think there's any question we want to go in that direction. We want to go with LEDs. The question is which.
I guess if we could, sorry, Ken, but I guess if we could narrow it down, I wouldn't mind the representative of the company coming in and talking to the council, or instead of spending time, let's have a workshop with the companies coming in so that we can make that decision, you know, because it is something we're gonna live with for a longer period of time. And maybe we could become more comfortable, at least I could become more comfortable at a workshop that if somebody doesn't have to come to the workshop, but we could have a couple hours even during the day, where we would have those representatives come in, and then we could at least attend if we wanted to or not.
Good, Mr. Chairman, it really sounds like that there's two general directions, two fundamental decisions. One of them is, do we stay with CMP and not have to get into maintenance and lease payments and everything, okay? And that's $21,000 a year savings. The other question is, do we want to try to get more savings by making the commitment around purchasing the lights?
Right.
So that's the way I'm understanding it. So maybe that could be part of the discussion in the workshop to say, of these two.
Do we want to own the lights or do we want to have somebody else?
The other thing too, goes back to what Jerry was talking about. Is CMP gonna charge an additional cost for pole application?
If they aren't putting them in, you're saying?
Well, like with Spectrum, every pole we're attached to, we get charged X amount per year to be on that pole. Is CMP still gonna send us a bill for that? Because we've hired another outside company that's making an attachment to their pole.
Yep.
And if it's a joint owned pole, then you have to pay both CMP and Consolidated.
Steve? Does the planning board or Adam have a question, like an opinion about this? Have we reached out to them, or are they gonna be part of the workshop, or?
Paul would be more.
I get some insights on that.
Okay.
Make sure that you compare apples to apples. Because I put two of them on Clinton Ave last year, and they're nowhere near as bright as what Waterville put down by the police station. So there's the difference in fixture, the difference in brightness, but that was all that CMP had. And they've been getting into it slowly because I think they're trying to make sure that what they put out there is gonna be a quality product. But there's, they're not all the same. I'm not impressed with the ones on Clinton Ave, they're not all that bright.
So they're not bright enough.
Putting in a brighter.
Well, they put two over by the police station. They had a crash a couple years ago, so they collected insurance. But we put a couple in there. And in my opinion, I pass there often, and they seem brighter than what we have here. I can't tell you what the differences in who the manufacturers are, but just going through there, I go through here often.
Sounds like we have more questions.
Yeah,
we know the answers to it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Just speaking from personal experience, I've dealt with CMP on a number of occasions regarding streetlights, that sort of thing. When they own it, they're much more interested in getting it fixed. That's just my opinion. I'm not a proponent of CMP per se, other than in this particular case, or not, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I believe you'd be better off, stick with CMP. You realize some savings from what I heard, but you don't take the risk of having a company go belly up or other things that pertain to that installation causing disagreement as to what's wrong. With CMP, you're going to end up with them fixing it.
And them owning the equipment,
Right.
maintaining it and all that.
Yeah, exactly. The minute you step away from that, you open up the options for other things to, weigh in.
So,
Yes, go ahead.
so why don't we plan a workshop, ask Mike to pull it together, it's open to the public anyway, and so if anybody wants to attend, and we'll make sure that Paul and Adam
Like Ray says, this is a decision we can live with for a long time.
And I think we should get if any company is interested to give us a 15-minute spiel, I think we should give them the opportunity to come in and let us, just give us a spiel or something, or at least more of a comparison, even if it's on paper, say, what is the quality of their product, what illumination, and what, you know, what it is, at least something that says that.
What you need is aluminum, foot candle. If we just say we'll buy, that, without that candle power, they can give you anything.
Right. We did
They
have.
give you a birthday candle.
We did have companies come in a couple of years ago, but that was 2 years ago.
Right.
And
Things have changed so much.
things might have changed, or, you know what I mean, it might have.
Okay, I have one question. Should we suspend the meeting until Mike comes back, or do you want to start with the old business?
Or
Yeah,
just
let's
keep going
continue down
on the
through.
agenda and then go back to his report after?
He had another thing on his report. Do you want just to continue with old business now, or take a break?
I would think we just want to continue.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we can always do that.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to old business, because we have a few things on that list.
Take a minute, just see if Mike's okay. Want him?
Yeah,
Or like
I can
open the
go
door
this.
for
Once you go and take it up, just see if he's gonna come back up.
I
If he's okay.
Yeah, the fire chief went with us.
Instant.
Okay, we're gonna begin old business. We'll begin with ordinance number 1, 2019. Providing for an amendment to chapter 14, article 4 of the Winslow Town Code titled zoning districts by adding the underlined language and deleting the strike-through language in the attached section. What is your pleasure?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Yes.
Ken Fletcher?
Yes.
Jerry Corrigan?
Yes.
Patricia West?
Yes.
Ben Twitchell?
Yes.
Steve Russell?
Yes. Moving on to ordinance number 2, 2019, providing for an amendment to chapter 14, article 4 zoning districts by adding temporary itinerant vendor and seasonal itinerant vendor as allowable uses in the mixed-use zoning district.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Open for discussion.
And if I might add, Adam, if you could clarify, the seafood vendor, because he was only working on the weekend, during the week it counted for consecutive days, is that part of the issue also?
That's another section.
That's in, okay.
That's the other section.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
This is more just their ability to be there, period.
The mixed-use district.
Because he didn't have a bathroom, right?
Well, that's
Didn't need one, you had to,
that's, it was part and parcel. Any further discussion? If not, a roll call vote.
Jeff West?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Yes.
Ken Fletcher?
Yes.
Jerry Corrigan?
Yes.
Patricia West?
Yes.
Ben Twitchell?
Yes.
And Steve Russell?
Yes. Moving on to ordinance number 3, 2019, providing for an amendment to chapter 4 of the Winslow Town Code titled Building and Plumbing by adding the underlined language and deleting the strike-through language in the attached document.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Open for discussion.
You know, if I could, Mr. Chairman, last time we clarified that this is actually adding the electrical code to our building
To our
ordinances,
building, yeah.
which we did not have before, so it's
Right.
not a change, it's an addition.
Yep. Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Yes.
Ken Fletcher?
Yes.
Jerry
Yes.
Corrigan?
Yeah.
Patricia West?
Yes.
Ben Twitchell?
Yes.
Steve Russell?
Yes. We'll move on now to ordinance number 4, 2019, providing for an amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone the entire lot owned by Town of Winslow on map 10, lot 18A, Benton Avenue, from the mixed-use district to a contract zone mixed use.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Open for discussion.
Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, what this is pending sale of Johnny's seed. We will end up with really 2 lots who are in conformance, with the exception of there's a passageway between the Orion side and the Johnny side. So since Orion needs to maintain that, because they do have some activity portion that's to the west, we needed to address the issue of it would not conform to the setbacks because it's connected. So the way we propose to do that is to contract zone. This will be removed in 3 years.
Any further discussion? Raymond?
This is just for that specific Johnny selected seat, because at the last discussion period, we talked about contract zoning. and that was put off, right? So this is just for a specific, or from now on, we'll have the capability to do contract zoning.
I read it that this law is the only one that will be contract zoning, and it will be grandfathered for 3 years, and it will be eliminated in 3 years. But no other lots, no other zoning districts will use contract zoning, that's my understanding.
Well,
Unless
as
we
a
open
matter
a
of
can
fact,
of worms.
as a matter of fact, we did pass
Clarify.
1209, which was contract zoning, allowing contract zoning.
Right.
We didn't change any zones, okay, but it just provides the ability
To do what we're gonna do
to use contract zones, and the example is just like we did on 4209, which is Johnny's.
So it can be used.
Yeah, can be.
Can be used for, that's extensive, yeah. We had quite a lengthy discussion.
Does that contract zone expire townwide or just for Johnny's?
Right now, it's at Johnny's. We have the capability of doing it anywhere by passing another one.
But it has to meet certain criteria enabled to be able to do so.
Would it come to us or the planning board, or would it be a?
Planning board first.
Planning board, and then it comes to.
So we would have to pass any contract zone?
Yep,
correct.
Okay. That's good.
Adam, do you want to clarify? You had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think Ken pretty much covered it. Basically, the last one that we did gives us the ability to do it, and this one is just pertaining to that lot.
Right.
Typically, it's an individual lot or a small group of lots that would request this contract zoning, but it would have to go through public hearing, planning board, council vote.
Yeah.
And actually, 90% of them, you might even be able to weed out before they get that far.
For the most part.
Depending on what
it is.
what they want to do. If it doesn't conform to what's there now.
Very unique situation.
Yeah. Well, one of the situations we brought up was the strip mall down there, where somebody wanted to develop the strip mall, and because it wasn't we couldn't do anything with it. We luckily had an adjacent public piece of property that we were able to deed over or potentially deed over to them, so it met that specific. In this particular case, we would be able to, under circumstances, grant them that use on that property without having to deed them over the property. Luckily, the project fell through, but
it's still going to be a public hearing in town council.
yeah, it's still going to be, but it gives us more of a control and more of a tool, a specific tool, not to be used in any, lightly, to be able to develop some areas where we feel would be necessary.
Thanks for that clarification. Any more discussion on ordinance 4? We're all set. We'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Kurian. Patricia West.
Yes.
Ken Twitchell. Steve Russell.
Yes. Moving on to ordinance 5, 2019, providing for amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone the following lots on map 4. Lots 25G, 25F, 17A, 17J, and tax map 1. Lots 128, 126, 127, 125, 129, 124, 123, 130, as they border the Augusta Road, from the low-density residential zone to a mixed-use zone.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded, open for discussion.
I'm gonna excuse myself from the vote because I own a lot.
Okay.
Good, Mr. Chairman, I think we had a good discussion during the public comment period, and I'm a little bit concerned. I know the planning board's done a lot of work on this, looked at it, and conceptually, it seems like the right thing to do, but would we be putting ourselves into a problem state if we tabled this? Because one of the things I'd like to see is an aerial view of what's going to be included in this, because I'm still not sure how many homes are being brought in, and so forth.
Yeah.
So I would like the council's consideration of that to see if it would be possible to table it.
Would you like to make that motion?
I will make that motion. Mr. Chairman.
Motion is moved and seconded to table ordinance number 5. Any discussion? Go ahead, Ed.
Gentleman waiting to put a business in one of those properties. I just wanted to clarify that.
So there is some urgency. It's not something we want to put off very long. We want to have that discussion.
He's already waiting until August now. because of this process. So if we table it, it's gonna be later than August.
Yep. This is the second reading,
Yes, it is.
But by the time he gets his permits and everything, he won't be
and
able to
if
start his business.
we
until
pass it
August.
tonight, it
It's
would
still
have to
August.
become changed in 30 days. So if we wait in 60 days, if we wait,
Right. You know, that's a concern I have, and, you know, I've driven up down that road, but I want to make sure, at least in my mind, that we aren't sweeping in properties that shouldn't be. Now, the gentleman who lives on the west side, we can't solve that problem. But I'd just like to get an aerial of this, just to see what it looks like. And I apologize if it holds enough for 30 days, but I know the planning board's been working at this for quite a while. But I just don't want to be causing problems until I'm comfortable that we're okay.
any further discussion on the amendment to table? Raymond?
No, I agree with that. It seems we let businesses expand into that side of the road mistakenly without changing that to, you know, from a mixed use. So are we just not now, because we've done it hurrying and saying, well, let's just do it now, we have them. I think it's to pause for just a couple weeks and to make sure we're doing the right thing as proper.
I guess my question is, what exactly do you want the planning board to figure out and answer? Because they were all in agreement with it, so.
This isn't a planning board issue in my mind. Now it's our decision, right? And so I'd like to see what's actually on these properties to figure out which ones are houses and how that's going to be after it's done. You know, I know where Trailside is and I know where the property in question, but there's a whole slug of lots there. And I just want to see what's there. And one of the easiest ways to do it is go on Google Earth and get a view of what's there. And I wish I'd done it beforehand.
Right. Yeah.
They got a whole bunch of businesses there now. I mean, basically, they're grandfathered in, basically, right?
Well, they might want to
No
expand.
matter what we do.
They might want to expand.
Exactly.
So, right now, I think, while it's low residential, they can't do, everybody's in limbo who has the businesses on that side of the road. Is that true or not? Everybody's in limbo. We're gonna be pretty pressed not to change it, considering that the use is already there, at least for some of the businesses. So, we're almost we're caught, really.
And something, also, the low-density residential district did allow some retail. I mean, there were some, it wasn't just houses.
Yes, the church went in, I believe, and things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of them were not even conditional uses. So,
Right.
I mean,
Raymond?
And Bernie, yeah, I saw you there.
I'm gonna allow you to speak in a second.
Was wondering, when you expanded into that across the street area, what were the what did you go through to do that? And, no, you don't have to answer that question if you don't want to. I'm just, that's.
It was zoned different. One issue first.
Yeah.
If, I want to allow you to speak, but you'd have to come up to the microphone so we can record it, if that would be okay. Yeah. And state your name and address, please.
Bernie Noble, 797 Augusta Road, Winslow, Maine. Originally, that was Trailside Performance.
Okay.
Yep. Originally, that was zoned differently. I don't know when it got switched. It was zoned commercial industrial or commercial residential over there, and it got switched, is how Frank Stankovic explained it to me years ago. Beyond that, Mr. Fletcher, I respectfully, and I appreciate your concerns, and don't feel as though that I don't, but I think you mentioned the same thing at the last meeting, that you wanted to review it and look into it, and you guys did, and I don't know what's happened from the last meeting to now, but it sounds like the same question is being asked again. That's it for me.
Does anybody have any questions?
Barry, which lot are you?
I don't have the map in front of me.
Site 129.
Or my,
You're 124. My readers. Where is he? 124. He's 124.
on that side.
Yeah, he's got 135, 135, 01.
Won't make it to an hour.
So there's a house at 125.
It's 124, 135, 134, 136.
Yeah.
137, right?
Yeah, you went all the way over the cemetery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Adam, do you have anything to add? Did it get changed, or?
It once was, wasn't, I think it was Before, it was definitely changed before he started using it. And I don't know if he was never communicated that it was being changed. So he thought he could expand across the street. I don't know.
So we would change a commercial industrial to a low residential area?
That happened. I think it was.
I can't even perceive why that
No,
would.
20 years ago.
Huh?
I can't imagine why it wouldn't be either.
20 years ago,
20
right?
years ago,
Yeah.
yeah, give or take.
How long ago?
I think it was
20
identified
years.
as a place for house lots because of the big fields. It was
And I own
identified as a good-
25G, so I own the last green property on the Augusta Road.
You own 25G?
Yeah.
Mike Forden, you owe some of that is through there too, right?
He owns 25H, that's in orange.
25H?
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, he's in orange?
Yeah, he's in orange.
Okay.
He's not gonna be in
Oh,
orange.
okay.
He's here for his pool.
Go ahead.
What happens if we would amend this to just change 129 for now, and during that time, we could do what Ken wants to do in an aerial view?
And we give him, this gentleman,
Well, if we want to make that decision tonight, that's fine. The motion on the floor right now is to table, but if we were going to do that, I would almost say do 123, 124, and 129. If you were going to do that, but that's just, again, without a workshop, I'm not sure we want to get into that discussion. Unless we want to make a decision tonight. The decision right now is whether or not we table. Go ahead, Ray.
I don't wanna do, to me, I don't wanna do spot zoning. I wanna look at comprehensively that whole area to see what we should do. You know, we're getting into like spot zoning, in my opinion, close to that at this, and I think that's not right. I think we need to look at the whole piece. Maybe it'll end up that we do that, but I think I don't feel comfortable making a spot zoning change tonight. I think.
so no, we get a vote on the amendment that he mentioned.
Right.
And if that doesn't pass, then we can go to pass the whole thing.
Yep, okay.
Any more discussion on tabling this ordinance?
I don't understand why we're tabling it.
Make sure we're making the right decision.
I understand, we have a planning board for that, and they were in complete agreement that this would be okay.
You know, if I could, Mr. Chairman, did the planning board have any public hearings on that?
This is a public hearing.
So this is the first public hearing on this zoning change.
First or second?
Wow.
First public hearing, second reading,
Second reading.
first public hearing, and apparently some of the owners complained about the type of information they received. I don't know
Yeah,
what we can
just
do about
what
that.
we were
Just-
giving them for information, they didn't have enough.
Didn't have enough, yeah. right.
They weren't complaining
They
about
weren't
it.
complaining, they just wanted more information, wanted more
They didn't say
awareness.
they were against the change.
And this would, if it is tabled, that would be one thing it would do, is it would be allow the owners to have more input between now and then before we make the change, but that's just an editorial comment.
Okay.
Any further discussion on tabling the motion?
We do have another gentleman here that's waiting.
Would you like to come up to this microphone, please? State your name and address.
My name is Michael Cludia, and the address of that property is 746 Augusta Road.
And you're ready to build, and another 30-day delay would cost you?
Well, the building's all up. What I'm getting is mainly permission to sell used cars.
Okay.
I want to be signed off.
So you don't have to do any construction work? You just want to change your building to a retail?
All I have left to do is paint the interior of my building, and that's it. And then the outside, I got to do earthwork and paving.
Would a 30-day delay cause you hardship, undue hardship?
What's that?
Would a 30-day delay cause you undue hardships?
I would. I'm trying to get it going before I run out of funds.
Any questions for Mr. Cludia? Raymond?
Not Mr. Cludia, but Adam, if you could. That's a new, Mr. Cludia, is that a new building on the site?
Yes, it is.
So you got permitted, and it's not a low residential, right? It's not. How did that get, is it a business or a home?
It's a commercial building.
Neither, right now it's a garage. Could be either.
But-
The use was never I mean, you're allowed to put up a garage pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
What you use it for is what you need to get permission for from, you know.
So he wants to have a retail car store, a retail auto store, right? And right now he can't because of the zone.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt.
The issue is, what Adam brings up, it's not the building, it's what you use it for. There's nothing, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's no reason he can't paint the interior of the building. You haven't gotta wait 30 days to paint the interior.
No.
You probably haven't even gotta wait to do your yard work, correct, Adam? He would have to get
He's got a couple
permits.
other things to do as well.
But the issue becomes putting the sign that says used cars for sale.
Right.
That's what we would need to change the zone for.
Right.
So, you know, it's not like he's waiting to construct, he's really waiting to put the sign.
To open business.
Yeah.
Open business, yeah. Raymond.
I guess my question, and maybe I'm not just getting it, is when he went for the permit to get it, he had to have a use for the building.
That's right.
And the use for the building, Duels was gonna be selling used cars, which was not permitted under the current rules in that district, so.
So we allowed that to go through to that point. So now it comes back to us to pass this, so you can put it up.
Again,
It
we're,
was there previously, correct?
it's a new building.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well,
there's
it's
2 or 3.
5 years old at this point.
Huh?
It's been there a while.
Oh, it's all, okay.
It's just a shop.
Yeah, the building's been there.
Okay, okay, my mistake.
He wants to
my
change the
mistake,
use.
that's-
He wants to change the use of the building, I
Okay,
believe.
oh, okay.
Yeah, good, Mr. Chairman, I think there's the new building you put up 5 years ago, plus there's another building, which is the office, right?
Well, it's all one building. It's got an addition to it.
He's talking
He
about
just
Jimmy's.
renovated that.
Oh, Jimmy, the older building is,
Yeah.
that's been over 20 years.
No,
it's
no,
been-
but that's on the same lot, isn't it?
Right. It's
Okay.
all on the same property.
Right, so there's the older building,
Yeah.
plus the new one that was put up.
Yeah, the old building, I was selling used cars there for 15 years. And I was using the whole property.
Yeah,
And now it comes to a screeching halt, I can't even use it.
yeah. That's why I,
It don't make sense, you know? It didn't.
Well-
Doesn't.
And now I'm gonna spend another $5,000-6,000 just to have a surveyor come in. Surveyor's gonna come in and tell me that it's usable. That's basically what it amounts to.
yeah, I don't understand the survey. Why do you need the survey?
The engineer,
Site review from the planning board.
to review,
Okay,
It's a conditional use.
is that mandatory to have that done?
well,
Yes.
that was what the planning board had to do, right?
No, once the zone is changed, what he wants to do will become a conditional use. So
Okay.
he'll have to go to the planning board. That's why it's gonna take him a couple more months to get through that
Because he'll have
process.
to go back to the planning board.
Right,
So-
and part of that site review process is getting an engineer to make sure you
Okay.
have right space.
But if we change the zone, he won't have to get an engineer and do all that stuff?
He will.
Because-
No, right now, he can't do that, period.
You can't even
I
start.
thought you said it was a conditional use.
Once it gets changed to mixed use.
Okay, so it's a conditional use under the mixed-use
Yes.
district. It's prohibited under the current
Correct.
zoning. Okay,
Yes.
The sale of cars is
it's prohibited. The sale of cars is prohibited where he sits now. So either way, he's gotta do the survey and the site review and all that, no matter what we do.
But he can't start it till after we change
Okay.
that zone.
Okay.
So if we pass it now, he can't start till August. If we table it, then September, October, the fall.
Well, the other thing is we might decide that we don't want to change that, and then we would go back to say, some lots that are currently in use, we're pretty hard pressed not to change that to mixed use.
That's right.
So he can get his conditional, so he can do it.
Yeah.
But under the ordinance that we're changing the whole district. And that's where I have a little bit of a problem, changing that whole district. If we decide to table it, then it would come back and we would vote on the whole district again. And all I'm saying, like what Ben just said, is saying that if we defeated it, we could at least have, next week, we could say, or next month, we could have, do we want some lots that are changed just to mixed use? Do that spot zoning. We could vote on the first one next, or today, or next week, or next month. And then he would still be delayed, but he would be delayed by only 1 month.
But this has already been voted on once.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know.
Unanimous vote here at council.
Yeah.
I just have, I don't understand the disconnect, with all due respect, I don't understand the disconnect. We all travel on the Augusta Road, it's a mix of businesses and houses, and keeping it low density means that no businesses can go on these lots. But if we change it to mixed use, we're just allowing more business.
It's for planning, it's for,
Yeah.
hopefully for growth.
In 20 years from now, if somebody wanted to open up a store on, I mean, these are not all house lots. There's a nursing home, there's my property, there's Trailside. I mean, it's a very big mixture. It's not, this isn't Smiley Acres and we're changing Smiley Acres to businesses.
Well, there's less
It's just,
houses on that side of the road than there are on the.
there are.
on the
I
mixed use
really
already.
don't understand the disconnect, because it's just business friendly and we're looking towards the future, so.
And there's a lot of businesses right straight down through there.
Yep.
Well, that's what public hearings do. We had a public hearing. Some of us feel, at least myself, feel right now that they brought up some legitimate concerns. We voted on it last month, knowing that we were gonna get public hearing, knowing that not all of us were comfortable with it, and that we wanted to hear public hearing, research it a little more, and here we are right now.
But we can't fix his individual problems that he came to express to us. He's on Lot 18, which is currently in the mixed use.
He isn't even in what we're
He
trying to
isn't
talk
even
about.
in, and I understand his concern about across the street, but his issues with his particular house and lot, nobody can change in this room. And I live right next to the big propane tanks with the lights, and I have no problem with that, because they're right next to my property at 25G, and I look at them all the time. I just, and the trash, and I apologize for all of that. That should be brought up to Adam. It should be brought up to some of us here in advance. You know, we're not going to talk about a problem that happened 4 years ago, but I just, he's not even in the district, in the zone we're talking about.
Go ahead, Gary.
You know, I think I also heard some comments of people not sure what this is all about. And I'm not sure what communication took place, but I think we have an obligation to make sure that any of those property owners along this has sufficient information to understand what this change could be. Now, maybe every one of them would agree with it, but I would much rather have them fully informed with a map, with a description of what a mixed-use zone is versus low density, so that when we make this decision, we can be assured that everybody has a full opportunity to understand.
So, all the time that I was selling used cars, that's not grandfathered right now, even though I stopped for 2 or 3 years and turn it back on again? No?
That's my concern.
It doesn't make sense.
That's my concern.
You'd have to ask the code enforcement. I guess it's a
He
change
had
of
that
use.
business
It's a
going.
complete different entity is what he's referring to.
Yeah.
So it's a new business with a new name?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not Jimmy's. Jimmy's doing what they've been doing.
But where all these other businesses are still going right now, no matter what we do, they're gonna still continue.
And I really, you know, we sent out these abutter notices. We give them our phone number, we tell them the basic idea of what's the plan. I really don't know, you know, where you stop with this information. If you have questions, call me, email me. This is what we're proposing to do. You know, I describe it somewhat in my letter, but I always ask people to call me if they have any questions.
Did they get this kind of a map too, in a letter?
No, but that's online. I mean, anybody could find out that information online. Anything I would send to somebody, they could find online.
No.
I know not everybody can do that, but I take phone calls.
I got just one thing to mention on this. We had one person that wasn't even in this district have a little complaint. This gentleman here that had a business there, he's owned the land forever. He wants to start it up again. What is the problem? Ken has a problem with doing the whole thing. We could hold off on, why can't we tell Adam to give him the go on this one particular spot? Because everybody else is still using those spots that they have, like Tish and the rest of them, for their business.
I think that would be a discussion if the motion to table fails.
Right.
I think we should discuss the motion to table at this point.
Okay.
And then if that fails, then we go into discussion on what we do change.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep, I'm fine with it.
This is one of my concerns about waiting until the second reading for a public hearing. If the public hearing was at the first reading, we would have a month to digest this. And maybe we should do that with zone changes, I'm not sure. But to make a decision tonight after neighbors come and butters come and discuss it, and then we have to make a snap decision on our second reading, I've always sort of objected to that or wondered if there was a better way to do it, and maybe this will precipitate that. Go ahead.
Okay, how many house lots are there, or houses are there on the east side of
I don't know.
201?
I don't know, that's why Ken wants a map of it.
Give me a number.
Aerial photo.
3 or 4,
3 or 4.
and that's a lot,
That was from Ellery, as the head of the planning board, provided us the information the night that we conducted that meeting that several people were at, where each of those specific lots were listed out by owner and what the property use was. There were 3 residents.
So everything else is business.
Now it's his business.
Hey, I'd like to seek permission tonight, if I could get going on this property. I've owned it for over 30 years, and I've sold used cars there and did business mechanic work. All I did is stop for 2 years and we got permission to build a new building, and then all of a sudden now it's a screeching halt. Like big red tape
We
come
hope
up.
to have an answer to you before the meeting's over. It may take 30 days, but it may take 30 minutes right here. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
So we have
Right.
this vote. Any further discussion on the motion to table? If not, we'll have a roll call vote on the motion to table.
Jeff West,
No.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
Ken Fletcher,
Yes.
Jerry Quirian,
No.
Patricia West,
I'm excusing myself.
Okay. Ben Twitchell, no, and Steve Russell.
Can I tap back in?
Can you what?
Can I vote? No, I'm kidding. I can't.
He wishes you could
So
right
it's
now.
2 yes and 3 no.
He does.
So if I say no and it's tied,
If you say no, it's no. We have 2 yeses and 3 nos.
And then we could go on to the next move.
Steve, I believe that if it's a tie vote, it dies.
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna vote, if I vote yes, it's a tie vote, right?
Yes.
And the motion fails.
And the motion fails either way then, no matter what I vote. Okay, I'm gonna abstain and the motion fails then, because no matter how I vote, the motion's gonna fail, right?
That is,
No, if you abstain, it's 2 yes, 3 no.
So it fails.
Motion fails.
Okay, so I'm gonna say yes.
Okay, so we're tied, so it fails.
I think that now the question is back on the table, do we change this whole thing? So now let's have a discussion on whether we change all of this or part of this. And I would add an amendment that we change lots 123, 124, and 129 tonight to a mixed use.
And then have a
130,
meeting
I
or
guess, too.
a planning thing.
We would go from 130, 123, 124, and 129 would be changed to mixed use. That would be my opposed amendment.
Okay, and I second it.
Discussion on the amendment.
Bernie, is 130,
Are we including
is that the
130?
little gray?
Yes, this
Thank
little
you.
county one. Yes, I'm sorry. So my amendment is to change 130, 123, 124, and 129 to mixed use.
What are those lots? And why are you, no, I understand where they are on the map, but what are they and why are you changing them?
Because there's already 2 businesses on 2 of them, plus he wants to expand, so that would add these 3 to that same zone. It's not like sticking 129 out all by itself, like spot zoning. That was my theory. So the discussion is that motion, it was motion and second, so that's the discussion.
And you need to have another month to do what Ken
And
wanted to
then
do.
we can look at the rest of it. We can look at the rest of it in the meantime and make a decision. That's my thought.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Because I assume 123, that was your lot, right?
I don't think so. That was beyond that.
130?
That's 124 is Bernie.
Okay, so basically from Mr. Cludio back to the commercial zone is what I'm changing to the mixed use.
So everything except for 123 and 130?
123, 130, 124, and 126 would change to mixed use.
No, 129.
29.
129, I apologize, yep.
130, 129.
So you're not part of it. That doesn't include,
No,
That
does
doesn't
not
include
me.
Trish's property?
which is 25G. Which does it what?
Any discussion on the amendment?
No, I just don't, I don't like doing the part.
It's just, the idea was planning for the future, and that's why.
Well, if the amendment fails, we'll vote on the whole thing. Go ahead.
Gary Owen, I'm also a member of the planning board. The only thing I would suggest as a result of a vote in favor of what you're saying,
Could you come to the microphone, please? Sorry. It's for the recording.
the other thing I would suggest, if you do accept what you've just proposed, we are doing a comprehensive plan, and we've already started that process. So if you pass this and do the spot zoning or the regional zoning or whatever you want to call it, on this, then we can review during the comprehensive plan the other lots that are involved. And that'll be the end of it. It doesn't need to come back to the planning board. The planning board's already acted.
They've already voted.
We've already acted.
Unanimous.
So, I mean, from a practical point of view, our wishes are being amended, which is fine. That's what this is all about. And as long as there aren't any other ones sleeping that want their lot changed, then you should be fine.
Well, I think the reason why I made that proposal is I believe out of those 4 lots, 3 of them already have enterprises on them.
Well,
3 out of the
and
4.
not just that, but 25F does as well.
And 25G. I'm 25G and I have a business on my property.
25F's where the tower is, right?
25F is the nursing home.
Okay, so it's 17A.
17A is the tower on it, yes.
17A has a
Tower on it, a cell tower.
It's
It's
a,
a cell tower.
it's an
Oh, yeah,
apartment
that's
building,
right there on this
with a
side,
cell
yeah.
tower.
Okay, well, the
That's
motion
this
doesn't, the proposed amendment doesn't include that at this date. So the proposed amendment is the 4 lots I mentioned, and that's the discussion at this point. If there's no further discussion, we'll have a vote on the amendment.
Ready?
Yep.
Jeff West,
No.
Ray Karen,
Yes.
Ken Fletcher,
Yes.
Jerry Quirian,
Yes.
Patricia's going to abstain, Ben Twitchell,
Oh. No.
Steve Russell.
Yes.
So 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses and 2 nos. So the amendment.
So that passed.
So that was a second reading on that ordinance, so those 4 lots are now mixed use 30 days from now, so you are ready to go.
Well, that was an amendment.
That was amendment.
That's the amendment, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was the amendment.
Now we have to vote on the whole proposal.
Now we vote on the whole thing.
Any discussion on the whole proposal?
Now when we vote on the whole proposal, that's just on the
Just on
ones
this
that we
amendment.
amended it.
Right.
Correct.
It's just on those 4 lots.
Then I am gonna vote because I'm not a part of that.
They're not a part of those 4 lots. So now the amendment, if there's no further discussion on the ordinance as amended, we will now hold the roll call vote on that.
Jeff West,
No.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Quirian.
Yes.
Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes.
So that is 6-1.
So now you're ready to go. You were ready.
All set.
Your lot just got changed.
Yeah.
Your lot got changed.
Make sure you get the permits.
Make sure you get all the permits you need.
Really?
I wish you had no letter.
20 years ago? It was built for 20 years.
So now, what do we do with this? We have a workshop or something?
We can discuss changing the others now. We haven't held him up.
Okay.
But we haven't changed them all.
Okay.
And if any of those other property owners want it changed to mixed use, we'll have that discussion.
So in other words, everything is dead until somebody comes up and wants to change something.
Right, we will study it, and if enough people want to change the rest of that green to orange, we will change it.
Okay, that's what you wanted, Ken?
Well, I think, yes, we can give it greater consideration.
Yeah.
Whatever you
Okay,
want to call it. Okay.
We all set?
I hope so.
Yeah, I like to go. They're going to the Bruins that on tonight.
Wouldn't stop,
Moving on to ordinance 6, providing for an amendment to chapter 5, article 4 of the Winslow Town Code titled itinerant vendors by adding the underlined language and deleting the strike-through language in the attached section. What is your pleasure?
So move.
Good, we should be doing
Is
that.
there a second?
Second.
Moved in second and open for discussion.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, this is the one that addresses the utilization over 12 months, but no more than 180 days. And that this will be going, the seasonal itinerant vendor shall apply to the planning board for the permit. So the planning board will be reviewing these. Is that correct? Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Quirian.
Yes.
Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes. Order number 12, 2019, providing for the authorization of town manager to build a 4-bay cold storage garage at a cost not to exceed $150,000. What is your pleasure?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded and open for discussion.
No, we had a discussion, not a decision, but a discussion when we reviewed the public works capital. And the only thing I would request is, since it is up to 150,000, that we try to get competitive bids just to make sure we're getting a fair and reasonable price. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Go ahead.
Chairman, I mean, yes, the Public Works Director has put together a package, and we'll be sending that out. I think so.
I request that we table this till July.
You want us to table it?
Well, I don't have those quotes, so before we actually make a decision, I'd like to get those quotes. if that's okay.
But we can still pass
We can
it.
pass this up to 150,
Up to- yeah,
and then with the competitive bids process.
That-
And then you
comes in
select the
above
best bid,
150,
right?
and
Allow the town manager.
Well,
We gotta relook at
Or
it,
below.
or below.
Could be below, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But, well, it says up to.
Yep. Not
Anybody
to
else?
exceed.
Wanna-
Well, I thought at the time that we were going to look at the building. We had a discussion on the exterior of the building, the quality of the building, the right electrical, everything that was involved in the building, that we wanted to have a little bit more specifics. We don't have that scope of right now, scope of the building, so we're okay in $150,000 without a scope in plan. And we're gonna bid out something we don't know of the scope of the project. Again, I don't see what's different than when we tabled it last time, because we still don't have a scope, we still don't have electrical, we still don't have some of the scope of the project, and we're okay in 150,000. We're gonna get competitive bids, and we're just saying, here's $150,000, we don't have a scope, but yet we'll go low bid, not knowing what we're really spending our money for.
But we did vote, you did vote unanimous on the first reading, right?
We did, because we were supposed to get
Get
some
the information.
information back.
Okay.
Paul just asked us to table it because he couldn't put together that, and granted, it's a busy time of season, so I don't know what's changed since the last time that
Then make the
he
motion to
wanted.
table it if you want to, Ring. Make a motion to table.
Yeah.
I would make a motion to table that until Paul could get
Is there a
some
second?
scope.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. The motion on the floor now is to table this ordinance. Any discussion on the motion to table? If not, that's a raise of hand, right? Order?
Yeah, it's an order, it's a roll call.
Oh, it's a roll call. Okay, go ahead.
Jeff West.
No.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Quirian.
Yes.
Patricia West.
No.
Ben Twitchell.
Yeah.
Steve Russell.
Yes. So that order is now tabled. Order number 13, 2019, providing for authorization for the town manager to enter into a 2-year PSAP call handle agreement with Somerset County Communications Center. Is there a motion to discuss?
Second.
Moved and seconded, open for discussion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is just a continuation or renewal of an existing agreement that we currently have.
But this is the one you were talking about earlier, Mike, as far as what they wanted, we've been 30 now and they want 90?
No. No, this is with Somerset. They answer the 911 call.
Okay, okay.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Quirian.
Yes.
Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes. Moving on to resolution number 19, 2019, providing for authorization for the town manager to transfer $16,000 from the street opening account to the Public Works capital equipment account for the purchase of a pavement grinder attachment.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, open for discussion.
Good, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank Paul for putting the costs and benefit together. That was very helpful, and it looks like a good project, because one of the things I learned was that coal patch, coal mix, is $135 a ton versus hot at 70. So for every ton we put down of hot, we're saving $65.
I mean, it's not perfect, we still have to use cold mix in the winter time.
Right.
But at least if we can patch it better in the summer, a lot of them don't come back.
That's right. So just in 1 year, just the savings, if we use 18 and 19 as a basis, was $4,814 savings. So that in itself almost pays for the coal payment, let alone what we're saving by not having to rent it. So, thank you.
Any further discussion on resolution number 19, 2019? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to new business. And I gotta find ordinance 10, right? I probably have to read it, don't I? I don't have ordinance 10 here. Do you have
No,
a
it's
copy?
ordinance 7.
7. Oh, I'm sorry, ordinance 7, it's number 10. Ordinance 7. Ordinance 7, 2019, an ordinance providing for an agreement to purchase number 8, 2016, personal rules, regulations for town employees. Be it ordained by the Town Council of Town of Winslow as follows. Whereas the Town Council established personal rules and regulations for town employees with ordinance number 1, 1998, and whereas the Town Council amended the ordinance with ordinance number 5, 2003, ordinance number 3, 2013, and then ordinance 8, 2016, and whereas the town manager has prepared a proposed amendment for the personnel rules and regulations to reflect fiscal year 2020 adopted budget by adding the underline and deleting the strike-through in the attachment document. Now therefore be enacted, Town Council, Town of Winslow, that ordinance number 8, 2016 be amended by adding the underline and deleting the strike-through in the attached document.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, open for discussion.
So, Mr. Chairman, this just brings the personnel policy in alignment with the adopted budget.
Any discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Quirian.
Yes.
Patricia West. Yes. Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes.
7-0.
Moving on to ordinance number 8, 2019, an ordinance providing for an amendment to chapter 14, section 1416, 4B2, titled Private Swimming Pools and Pool Fences, by adding the underlined language and deleting the strike-through language in the attached section. Be it ordained in the Town Council, Town of Winslow as follows. Whereas the planning board voted to recommend reducing the fence height requirement from 6 to 4 feet. Now therefore be ordained by the Town Council, Town of Winslow, Maine, that the zoning ordinance, zoning chapter 14, section 1464B2, titled Private Swimming Pools and Pool Fences be amended by adding the underlined language and deleting the strike-through language in the attached section.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, open for discussion. If there's, oh, go ahead, Ken.
From my understanding that the planning board took a look at this and they found it appropriate to reduce it from 6 to 4. And this is in compliance with the state. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Are there any other towns with 4 feet? Are we breaking new ground? Or
The state law is 4 feet.
state law is 4 feet, so we're consistent with state law?
We were stricter.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
No.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jerry Quirian.
Yes.
Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes. We will now move on to order number 14, 2019, an order providing for authorization of the lining of 650 feet of Cedar Brook at a total cost not to exceed $355,000. Be it ordained by the Town Council, Town of Winslow as follows. Whereas 650 feet of Cedar Brook needs to be lined, and whereas the town expects to have $412,000 available to do the project in the capital sewer and roads account, and whereas the Public Works Director is estimating the project will cost $355,000, now therefore be it ordered by Town Council, Town of Winslow that authorization is given to line 650 feet of Cedar Brook at a total cost not to exceed $355,000. Be it further ordered, the project will be funded from the street and roads capital account.
Second.
Moved and seconded, open for discussion. Go ahead, Ring.
So the lining is really not just lining, but actually enough so that prevent cave-ins for the future. So
the lining is structural. It's
the lining is
It's
structural.
not just a
Yeah.
smooth finish. It does have structure to the line.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll vote on order number 14, 2019. That's a show of hands. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. Moving on to Resolution 22, 2019, providing for authorization of the Police Department to use $1,190 from the Police Confiscated Fund account for the installation of a keyless entry door lock in the Police Department. Be resolved by Town Council of Town of Winslow as follows. Whereas the Police Chief is requesting to use $1,190 from the PD Confiscated Fund account for the installation of a keyless entry door lock to the Police Department, and whereas the funds are available in the Police Confiscated Fund account, now therefore be resolved by Town Council of Town of Winslow that the Police Department is hereby authorized to use $1,190 from the Police Confiscated Fund account for the installation of a keyless entry door lock for the Police Department.
Is this a keypad or card swipe?
Well, let's have a motion and a second first.
So move.
Second.
Move and second, open for discussion.
Sorry.
That's all right.
It's a card, it would be consistent with what they have down there.
They have what, a keypad now?
No, they have a card.
Oh, they have a card?
Yeah.
So they're gonna change it to a keypad, or they're gonna
No,
be card?
they're just gonna put in another card reader. So they'll still be able to use their cards.
So they're just replacing the one that's there now?
There's not one there now.
Oh, I thought you said there was.
No, I'm sorry.
This is the second door. This is the second door once they've entered.
Exactly. This is a door
okay.
this is a door that doesn't have a key mechanism on
okay.
it.
Currently
This
they
is
have
once you open the big door and drive in, okay.
Any further discussion of resolution number 23? If not, we'll have a roll call vote.
No roll call.
No roll call on resolution. Okay, I'm sorry. Show of hands, please. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously.
Actually, I think the other vote should have been a roll call.
Yes.
Yeah, I just realized that. We should go back and have a roll call vote on order 14. Officially, everybody voted yes. Is it okay if she just puts down a roll call vote, or do you want to go through it? I made a mistake.
You want to be official?
I want to be official, okay. We're gonna have a roll call vote on order number 14, 2019.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Ray Karen. Ken Fletcher. Jerry Querian.
Yes.
Patricia West.
Yes.
Ben
Yes.
Twitchell. Steve Russell.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now order number 14 is official.
Yeah.
Discussion items. Portable basketball hoops in the towns right away.
I put that in. Basically, I've seen more and more portable basketball hoops using the streets right away, the paved section. Some of them are overhanging, almost a travel lane. Whoops. And what happens is a lot of those are kept up year-round. They don't move them out during the winter. And what I'm afraid is what happens if somebody hits it. Could be Public Works plowing and drops one of those, say in December or January, and it goes down into the windshield of one of our plow trucks. What I would like to look at is, should we have an ordinance that says, yes, you can have it from April, May, June, July, August, September, October into November, but it has to be gone December, January, February, March.
Raymond, did you have an input?
Is this an issue even in the summer, or is it, what is it?
If you're gonna put something in the summer, allow them at all, then they should be regulated where they are. I know some that are on sidewalks, which means people have to walk around. Winter time's not a problem, we push them out of the way.
Like my mailbox?
Careful, we can't, but, you know, how much time do we spend knocking on doors while people move them and they come back, you know, I just.
How many are out there?
There's a lot.
Really?
Yeah, there are a
Geez, I gotta
lot.
pay attention to it.
40 or 50 might be a high number, but you're gonna go through every neighborhood, there are some.
If I might?
Yes, go ahead.
Some are in places where, near my house, where there's no sidewalk there, so it's like on the driveway, usually at the end of the driveway, where people, you know, on the grass, on our
Right.
obviously our property.
Some of them put them on the pavement, so they're out on
Yeah,
the road. Which,
yeah.
Summertime, not really an issue. Wintertime, my guys, if they're within reach, they're gonna push them over slowly, try to
Yeah.
slide them out of the way.
And they do that.
And they do, but wish we didn't have to, because at some point somebody's gonna complain that we damaged it, but you can't always go around knocking on the door when you see it's gonna snow.
So if we pass an ordinance on this saying that they can't do that, how are we regulating that?
How are we
And if
gonna-
they keep doing it, because we've asked them previously and they keep putting it out there, then what do we do?
I think it basically, it's illegal. People do it until it becomes a nuisance and the police tell them to remove it. That's the way it's gone in the past.
And if you want an ordinance, if you look at mailboxes, if you come to fix and did whatever, if you really wanna go state statute, if somebody hits one and falls into a weed.
Yeah, Mike, is your mailbox out in the middle of the road or what?
You could do a fine, you could put it on the ordinance. You've been warned after the third warning, then you get a fine.
And I think we may already have that type of, as a nuisance for the police department. You know, you're impeding the public way, it's,
So we already have something in place.
I think state law prevents somebody from using the public property for their own.
Yeah.
I mean, I sure don't wanna.
Oh, to do it like a parking ban.
Be very careful what you say you allow on public property.
Yeah.
Say you allow it, then a kid gets hurt.
So if it's not allowed, and we have no liability.
And it goes back to the children playing signs. I don't put them up. The state doesn't recommend them, the insurance doesn't recommend them, except around schools, playgrounds. They request every year to put them up. Some towns do. Where I live, put them up. I try not to put them up here, but
Because that allows them, that gives them, the kids permission to play, you mean?
well, no, but it just kind of, I look at it, it encourages, you know, kids playing in the road. If you put up a sign that says caution kids, children playing. That's,
You know, the good, Mr. Chairman, it really sounds like that we need to check into what our ordinances do say.
Say,
Yeah.
Even if strictly from a liability standpoint, if we haven't got a clear ordinance that says thou shalt not do that, I could see litigation coming if unfortunately, God forbid, a kid got hurt, and then if we knowingly and willingly allow them to have the basketball court in the public way, what kind
my
of,
question is, where does the enforcement fall?
Well-
I really don't want to be the one that has to go around and count basketball.
and that's part of what.
You don't
I
have
think
anything
we
else to
need-
do, do you?
Part of what I think we need to take a look at is to find out how we would enforce it. And one of the things is to see if Waterville or Oakland or anybody has a similar ordinance. And maybe do a little research to find out what is a practice. Now, you know, I don't know if we want our police department doing basketball hoop checks,
Right.
but if we've got a black and white clear ordinance, then at least we get something to work for.
Right, and at least we aren't liable if something
At
happens.
least we might have a chance on a
Well,
liability.
isn't it state law already that you can't use municipal property for, you know, without permission?
I would believe so,
Should be.
but that's what we want to pull together.
Yeah, make sure.
And say, here's what the state law says, this is what's on the books.
Municipality about that.
Yeah, and maybe we need to check with the town lawyer just to make sure everything. just so that we can say we've formally addressed it.
May I make a suggestion? How about setting up a committee, like 5 people?
Well, we could do that depending on what we find out.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's a complicated issue and we do need to.
No.
We're gonna see what state law says,
Yeah.
and see if we can do our own first.
Who's gonna look at state law?
I'll look into that, see what I can get.
Just so we are.
I have it by tomorrow, right?
Okay, is there any more discussion? If not, just
I've got the thing. Don't expect me to remember it. Mr. Chairman, motion to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 405-6C, lease negotiations and dispatching negotiations.
second?
Second.
We're in second session.